The upcoming action role-playing game Granblue Fantasy Relink, developed by Cygames, has created a buzz due to its striking visuals and engaging gameplay. It's scheduled to release in just a couple of weeks on February 1st, and the developers have been working hard to enhance the overall gaming experience. Cygames recently revealed a series of updates that will hopefully take Granblue Fantasy Relink to the next level. In this video, we're going over what endgame activities and future updates look like so players can have an idea of how massive this ARPG is, and set expectations of what activities they can engage in after completing the main campaign. The main campaign of Granblue Fantasy Relink is expected to last around 20 hours, but Cygames confirmed that completing all side quests will easily net more than 100 hours of total gameplay. However, we strongly believe that players can get even more hours than that because of the things we will showcase in this video. Let's get into what those things are. In Granblue Fantasy Relink, playable characters play a crucial role in supporting the game's progress. There are 19 characters available, each with unique playstyles and gameplay options that cater to different preferences. This coming April, the game will be receiving a free update and 2 new characters will be added to the roster, which are Seofan and Tuyen, bringing the total of number of characters to 21. Not only do these characters possess distinct abilities and skills, but they also have unique designs and identities, which is one of the game's highlighted features. Cygames have invested a lot of time and effort into creating a diverse set of characters with varying styles, ensuring the game has excellent replay value. This is one of the biggest draws of Granblue Fantasy, and players can always swap characters if they want to try something new. Next, we'll take a look at character progression. Unfortunately, the recent released Granblue Fantasy Relink demo was not able to showcase character progression all that much. We decided to include character progression in this video, though, as it's one of the key aspects that enriches Granblue Fantasy Relink's replayability. Each playable character has its own progression. As characters gain levels after a series of encounters, they will become much stronger and gain MSP. MSPs are points that players can use to progress each individual character's masteries, which I will get into in just a minute. As the recent livestream confirmed by Cygames, the maximum level that characters can attain is up to level 100, and it will be massive in terms of replayability. Each character will also have a special progression system that will allow players to unlock special nodes, which will then provide additional stats, traits, new skills, and other upgrades that overall improve the character's performance in combat. Character progression is huge in the sense that you'll have the freedom to max out 21 possible characters soon. Min-maxers and completionists will easily net dozens of hours on this one aspect alone. Another huge avenue for us to spend dozens of hours on is character customization. Mastering your main character is a completely different avenue, but on top of that, players will be given the chance to explore a handful of weapons with different sets of traits. Each weapon can be upgraded with various materials that the players get from quest rewards or monster drops. Weapon upgrades will undergo limit breaking when they reach their level cap, which will then require more rare materials from the field. Weapon upgrades can go as high as level 150 as far as the livestream confirms, and players will put a lot of time into this. On the other hand, sigils are a completely different avenue to tinker with. Sigils are one of the main sources of additional traits, which drastically improve a character's effectiveness. Each sigil type caters to a specific trait. For instance, an attack power 3 sigil provides an attack boosting trait, which increases attack stats overall. There is a vast array of selections when it comes to sigils, and each provides different effects such as adding more HP, increasing critical hit rates, and more. Each character can equip more than 3 sigils at a time, so you'll have the freedom to shape a specific character to your liking. Now you already have an idea of how the endgame loop will look like and the scope of it. Spending hours gathering materials and upgrading weapons or experimenting with sigil combinations to attain the best upgrades for your chosen characters will be a regular thing. Mixing and matching the right weapons and sigils can alter a character's playstyle, so expect to have access to a wide variety of character builds possible at the endgame. The main scenario takes place in Zega Grande Skydom, which will let players explore different sky islands. Each of these islands has different locales and levels to explore, and each of them is distinct in terms of presentation and, of course, progression. Aside from the regular side quests that players can take from the quest counter in online hubs, NPCs in town can also give side quests that one can complete for various rewards such as materials or currencies. The standalone quests are linked to the player's overall reputation. Although the said reputation system or mechanic lacks details of it now, what we know is as you complete these standalone NPC quests, it will increase your reputation in general, and more quests will be unlocked as your reputation increases. After the main campaign, one can easily go back to previously visited places to cover unexplored areas to hunt treasures and materials. In the recent livestream, it was hard to determine the exact proportions of an island in terms of overall exploration. However, we are betting that they won't be as large as many recent games, since the main focus of Granblue Fantasy Relink points to the endgame and its loop. And talking about endgame activities, let's talk a little bit about raids. These types of quests are often known as the hardest ones and typically cater to advanced players in terms of skills and gear setup. Character customization, character mastery, weapon upgrades, min-maxing levels, all of these preparations will be part of these quests. Cygames provided a taste of these raids by fighting a Lucius Windworm, a huge worm that could harness the power of wind. Before we go to the specifics of the fight, notice that each party member was already raised to level 100 and their weapons were upgraded to level 150, which is possibly the current ceiling in terms of upgrades. On top of that, all of the equipped sigils were also upgraded to their maximum state, which drastically improved the character's performance. The last thing I want to mention is how they carefully pick their skills to cover the party's needs. And talking a bit about party composition, you can see that Cygames selected Cagliostro as the main support of the party. She is capable of burst heals and can even revive allies from critical condition. I cannot stress how important this is to a party in raids. The second member they selected is Jita, Gran's counterpart. In this fight, Jita was built to provide extensive damage mitigation to the party or use her skill substitute, which will allow her to take damage instead of her allies. Yujin, on the other hand, is a pure range DPS that can inflict paralyze, which temporarily stops targets from moving, while also dealing substantial damage. Lastly would be Gondagoza, another pure DPS that can inflict slow to targets and is capable of hard-hitting single strikes. He has an edge in this fight due to having access to fire elemental strikes. Although the developers mentioned that it's not required to take advantage of elemental weaknesses, they encourage everyone to use their favorites, and we will see how it pans out on release. Moving on to the actual fight itself, one thing that we can notice right away is how strong these endgame bosses are. Single strikes or AoE attacks can inflict huge damage to the party, even though they are all pretty much at max stats. We can see that Jita helps the party by taking advantage of her damage mitigation skills. Notice that Cagliostro also provides substantial healing to the party since most of the party members receive heavy damage from the boss. She even managed to revive Gondagoza when he entered a critical state. Gondagoza and Yujin are the hardest hitting DPS characters in this fight, and even though they are dealing huge damage to the boss consistently, they only shave a small percentage of the boss's HP. And one last thing that I want to mention is how the mechanics were interesting presented in this fight. Dodging those rotating sets of tornadoes is quite fun to watch, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other interesting mechanics in store for us, and I cannot wait to see them. Cygames mentioned that a lot of cool fights are waiting for their fans, and this fight is just a taste. They have announced that Granblue Fantasy Relink will receive a free update in early March that will add the Lucilius raid. Lucilius will be one of the hardest raid fights so far, so we can definitely see that Cygames' focus is geared towards endgame activities. So, from what we can get out of all of this, players need to strategize and coordinate their actions effectively to succeed in these fights. Endgame content emphasizes the importance of party synergy, where each character can offer unique advantages and abilities. By utilizing the strength of each character, they can cover each other's weaknesses and overcome challenging fights. Mixing and matching party members to find the best strategies to keep certain bosses will provide hours and hours of gameplay. And the best part about all of this, you don't have to do it alone, since these fights can be done cooperatively, which I believe is the main draw to the game and is what will keep players engaged with this game over longer periods of time than just the campaign. So what do you guys make of the endgame activities for Granblue Fantasy? Did you realize that there was this much to it? Is that what's got you excited about this game? Does it make you a little bit weary of grinding, or are you really excited to get in there and level up all these characters? Let me know in the comments below.